Hello, I'm Odin, and this time I'm going to make another requested prop. It's the Kingdom Key from Kingdom Hearts. Well, the Kingdom Key is the iconic keyblade from the Kingdom Hearts video game series, and it appears in all of the games. Now, most of the keyblades that I've seen for sale at cons are skinny and two-dimensional. They're kind of flat. What I want to make is the one that's as thick as they appear in the video games. I'm going to start with some plans. These were made by Reddit member Keyblade Crafter. I enlarged two sections to full size and cut them out and used them as a pattern. The plans say the main tube is 2 inches in diameter, so I'm going to cut a piece of 1.5 inch PVC pipe. 1.5 inches is the inside diameter. The outside is nearly 2 inches wide, which is close to the size in the plans. I'll cut a piece 25 inches long for the blade, and then another piece 2 inches long for the shoulder at the bottom of the key head. Then I'm going to use 1 inch PVC for the grip. I've got a blade that's 25, a gap of 2 inches, and then this is where the handle starts and it comes back to 11 inches. So what I want to do is set my pipe and then make sure I cut enough of this that'll fit inside, so I'll just kind of go here. To fit all the pipe together, I'm going to cut strips of styrene plastic that's 1/8 of an inch thick. That's enough of a spacer to go between the two pipes. I can glue it all together using a water-thin glue. This is a solvent glue called Weld On 4. This is the stuff you use to glue together acrylic plastic to make a display case. But you could also use PVC pipe cement from the hardware store. To cover the open end of the layered pipe, I'm going to cut discs of styrene plastic using a hole saw on my drill press. The hole sizes were almost perfect. With a little bit of sanding, it's a good snug fit. Once all the discs are put on, I can glue on some more strips and then attach the blade. Then I can glue a scrap piece of styrene to the end of the blade. I'll trim the edges after the glue is set up. The last piece of PVC pipe I need is for the bow of the key. I'm going to use a 2 inch PVC coupler lined with EVA foam so it'll fit the 1 inch pipe. I'll use styrene plastic to cover the ends, and use the hole saw to fit the grip on one side, and I'll just drill a 1/4 inch hole into the other. By gluing it all together on the grip, I know the parts will line up. I can round off the corners later after the glue is set up. But it's not glued onto the grip yet. First I need to plug the end of the grip with a wooden dowel so I can attach an eyebolt for the keychain. The dowel is the same size as the pipe, so I'll need to sand it smaller with my belt sander. It's a snug fit, but some hot glue and a mallet will hold it in place. I trace the patterns onto some EVA floor mats so I can make the teeth and the bow of the key. I need to layer 3 pieces of EVA foam together with contact cement to make the parts thick enough, and then I can cut the shapes out. First, I use my bandsaw for all the bigger cuts. Now I don't want to cut out the teeth of the key just yet. That part needs to be tapered. I mark off 1 inch along the teeth edge and keep the other side at 1.5 inches. I can then sand down the EVA foam. I attach my shop vac to the sander to help control the dust from sanding the EVA foam. Now I want to sand it before I cut the teeth, otherwise the sander will ruin the corners of the teeth. To cut out the intricate teeth shape, I use a scroll saw with a spiral blade. The spiral blade can cut from any direction, unlike a bandsaw, so this is much easier to cut out. This was actually so much easier, I should have cut all my pieces with a scroll saw. There are decorative indentations on each side of the bow. I could cut them out with a blade, but I tried a 5/8 inch Forstner bit in my drill press, and it was a clean cut all the way through. I made a plug with 2 layers of EVA foam, so the whole becomes a pair of indentations. I don't want to glue the flat edges of the foam onto the round PVC pipe, so I use a drum sander in my drill to hollow out the foam where I'm going to glue it on. I mark where I want to glue the teeth onto the blade so it can be clean when I want to paint it. I do the same thing on the bow. I glue the bottom of the bow on first to be sure the top lines up with a bigger PVC piece. I want to add some decorative trim onto the top of the bow, so I cut some 3mm foam into strips and glue them around the coupler. To make the keychain, I first make a paper pattern of a Mickey silhouette. I want the Mickey head to be 1 layer of EVA foam thick, so I sand the texture off, and that way both sides of the foam will be smooth. Then I trace the pattern and cut it out. For the chain, I could use a metal chain, but it's heavy enough to scratch up the paint, so I'm going to use a plastic one instead. I found the perfect trigger snap to attach the key ring to the key, and if I carefully cut the plastic links, I can fit them onto the Mickey head and the trigger snap. I drill a 1/4 inch hole into the wood so I can attach the eyebolt. That's the last piece I need to add, and now I can start to paint the keyblade. I want to cover all the EVA foam with Plasti Dip paint, It's an air-dry specialty rubber coating that will seal the foam for a better paint job, but Plasti Dip will peel right off of the PVC pipe, so I tape off the PVC to keep it clean. It takes 3 or 4 coats of Plasti Dip to cover the open cell foam of the keyblade and Mickey. Once dry, I can peel the tape off and paint the small blue ring that is in the shoulder of the key. After that dries, I remove the tape to see that I was not that careful when I put the tape on, and I missed the corners. So to touch it up, I spray a little paint and correct the places I missed using a brush. I cover the blue paint with tape, then I paint the entire keyblade silver. Even though I want the top golden yellow, I want to cover the black Plasti Dip with a light colored base coat first, or the yellow will end up looking dingy. I also paint Mickey and the plastic chain silver. I had lightly sanded the chain first to help the paint stick to the plastic better. Next, I add more tape to protect the silver on the blade, and then I can paint the bow yellow. I didn't want to make the bow a metallic gold, I like the look of the golden yellow better. I should have used acetone to remove the printed words from the PVC coupler before I painted it. It took many coats of yellow to cover all of them up. I like the cartoon look of the game, so I'm not going to weather the keyblade. But I do need to add the grip. So I'm going to take about 8 feet of twine, double it over on itself, tie it off at the top of the bow, and then wind it back and forth down the grip. And cover the grip with hockey tape. The crisscross pattern will help add some detail to the grip. Then, assemble the keyring and clip it to the keyblade.
You can use this same idea to make any of the other keyblades you see in the game, or you can make up your own. Most of the material that I used for the keyblade was purchased at Home Depot. I put a part list in the description. There's many different ways you can make things, but this is how Odin makes. If you like the video or have other ideas for something for me to make, please leave them in the comments below. And if you make any of these projects for yourself, I'd love to see a picture. Send me one at odin@odinmakes.com.